The day started like any other for the man. He woke up early because his phone would not stop buzzing. He thought it was work or maybe a friend who needed help. He did not rush. He moved slowly and made tea. He liked calm mornings. They helped him think and plan his day. He had no idea that this day would change everything. He worked in a small office, not far from his home. His life was simple. He paid his bills on time. He helped his family when he could. He was not rich and not poor, he believed. In routine, he believed that steady life was a good life. He had never imagined himself in a dramatic story. He was not the type who chased trouble. Trouble usually came to him without warning. When he reached the office, he noticed the message that mattered. It was short and strange. It said, "I need to get married tomorrow. Please meet me today." It came from someone he knew, but had not spoken to in a long time. The words stayed on the screen. He read them again and again. He felt confused. His first thought was that it was a joke. His second thought was that something was wrong. He remembered her from years ago. They were not close friends, but they had shared moments, long talks, small laughs, and quiet understanding. Life had pulled them apart. In different directions. He had not expected to hear from her again. And not like this. He sat at his desk, but could not focus. His mind kept returning to those words, "get married tomorrow." He tried to imagine why anyone would say that marriage was not something people decided overnight, at least not in his world. He wanted to ignore the message, but something stopped him. There was fear hidden in those words, fear he could almost feel through the screen. He replied that they should meet after. Worked the rest of the day, moved slowly. He made mistakes. He stared out of the window. He thought about all the possible reasons. Someone could be sick, a family issue, a secret deadline. Every idea made him uneasy. He told himself that he would just listen. He did not promise anything. They met at a quiet place, away from noise. When he saw her, he knew right away that this was serious. She looked tired. Her eyes were heavy. Her smile was weak. She tried to act normal, but her hands trembled when she held her cup. He asked how she was. She said she was fine, but her voice said otherwise. For a few moments they talked about small things. Work, weather, time passing by, but the tension sat between them like a wall. Finally she looked at him and repeated the words, "I need to get married tomorrow." She did not smile this time. She did not laugh. Her eyes filled with tears, but she did not let them fall. He stayed silent. He did not know what to say. He waited for her to explain. She took a deep breath and began to speak slowly, as if choosing every word carefully. She said her family had given her an impossible choice. There was pressure and expectations that she could no longer escape. They had arranged something without asking her. They believed time was running out. She explained that saying no would destroy her position in the family. She would lose support and safety. She would be blamed and shamed. She said she felt trapped, like a door was closing, and she was running out of air she did not want. To marry a stranger chosen for her, she wanted control, even if it was for one day. He listened without interrupting. He could see the pain she was carrying. He remembered how strong she used to be, how confident now she looked, like someone holding herself together with effort. He felt anger toward the situation, but also fear. He knew getting involved could change his life. She looked at him and said she was not asking for love. She was asking for help. She said she trusted him because he had always listened without judgment. She said this was not about a perfect future, but about surviving the present moment. Her voice broke when she said she had no one else to ask. He felt the weight of her words settle inside him. He thought about walking away. It would be easier. He could say he was sorry and leave, but something inside him refused. He had always believed that real character showed in hard moments. He asked her what she expected from him. She told him she needed someone willing to stand beside her just for now. She said it could be temporary or simple. She said they could make rules and boundaries. She just needed the world to see that she was married so the pressure would stop. She promised she would not trap him or demand more than. Idea sounded unreal. His mind raced. He thought about gossip, consequences, and misunderstandings. He thought about his family and his own quiet life. He also thought about how alone she looked. He realized that doing nothing would mean letting her face everything alone. They sat in silence for a long time outside. People walked by, laughing and talking as if nothing serious ever happened in the world. He finally spoke. He said he could not give an answer right away. He needed time to think. She nodded. She said she understood, but reminded him that time was almost gone when they parted ways. The sun was setting. He walked home slowly. Every step felt heavy. He replayed the conversation in his head. He imagined what tomorrow could look like. If he said yes, and what it would look like if he said no. Neither option felt easy at home. He sat in the dark without turning on the lights. He thought about his parents, his beliefs, and his plans. He had always thought marriage would come naturally. With love and time now, it was being placed in front of him like an emergency door. He wondered why life chose him for this moment. Maybe it was chance. Maybe it was fate. He did not know. What he knew was that a decision was coming, and it would not be small. He lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, knowing that by morning, everything could change. Morning came too quickly for the man. He had barely slept. His thoughts kept looping again and again. He kept seeing her face and hearing her voice saying time was almost gone. He got out of bed, feeling heavy as if the air itself was pressing down on him. Washed his face and looked at his reflection. He saw someone who looked the same, but felt different. Inside him, something had shifted. He made tea but forgot to drink it. He kept standing near the window, watching the street wake up. People walked to work. Vendors opened shops. Children laughed. Nothing looked urgent, yet his world felt like it was shaking. He checked his phone. There was a message from her. It was simple. It said, "I hope you are well." That was all. No pressure, no reminder, yet it carried weight. He knew she was waiting. He knew she was counting hours. He decided to go to work. But his mind was not there. Papers and screens meant nothing. His hands moved, but his thoughts stayed with the choice in front of him. He wondered how he'd ended up here. He'd always lived carefully. He avoided risks. He'd avoided drama now. Life had placed him at the center of something huge. During lunch, he stepped outside alone. He sat on a bench and let the noise of the city pass around him. He thought about her situation again. Her words had been calm, but her eyes had told the real story. Fear, mixed with hope and exhaustion. He realized she had probably been carrying this alone for a long time. He asked himself hard questions. What would happen if he helped? What would happen if he walked away? Helping could bring problems, judgment, and misunderstanding. Walking away would bring regret. He knew himself well enough to know regret would stay longer. Memories returned to him, moments from the past when she had shown kindness without expecting anything. Moments when she had listened when he was struggling. Those memories did not shout. They whispered, but they were strong. After work, he did not go home. He walked aimlessly, letting his feet decide where to go. He passed familiar streets and unfamiliar ones. He watched couples walking together. He watched people arguing and laughing. Life was messy everywhere, not just in his own story. As the sky darkened, he made a decision to meet her again. He sent a message, asking if they could talk once more. She replied quickly, saying yes, and shared a location. When he arrived, she was all ready. They're sitting quietly. Her posture was straight, but her shoulders looked tired. When she saw him, her eyes softened. She did not ask anything. She waited. They sat facing each other. The silence was long, but not uncomfortable. Finally he spoke. He told her he had thought deeply. He told her he was scared, but he also told her he did not want to abandon her in her hardest moment. She listened closely. Her hands were folded tightly. She did not interrupt when he finished. She exhaled slowly, as if she had been holding her breath for hours. She thanked him for coming back, she said. Even this conversation meant more than he knew. She explained more about the pressure she was under. She talked about relatives' expectations and endless questions. She talked about being treated like a problem that needed fixing. She said marriage had become a deadline, not a choice. She admitted she felt guilty for asking him, she said. She knew it was unfair. She said she hated putting him in this position, but she also said she was desperate and out of time. He told her he appreciated her honesty. He said if he agreed, it would not be out of pity. It would be because he chose to stand with her. He said they would need clear understanding and respect. They discussed boundaries slowly and carefully. They spoke about living arrangements, family reactions, and personal space. They spoke about honesty and exit paths. Nothing was hidden. Nothing was promised beyond what could be handled. The more they talked, the calmer. He felt fear was still there, but it was no longer alone. It was balanced by clarity. He realized this was not a reckless jump. It was a controlled step into uncertainty. She looked at him with gratitude, not excitement, not expectation, just relief. He saw that and felt a strange warmth in his chest. He realized this was not about romance, it was about trust. As they prepared to leave, she asked one final question. She asked if he was truly willing, knowing things could become complicated. He paused only for a moment before answering yes. They both knew there was no turning back now. The night air felt different. As if it carried the weight of what was coming, he walked home with a steady pace. His fear had not vanished, but it had transformed into resolve. At home, he packed a small bag, not because he was leaving, but because he wanted to be prepared. He sat on his bed and looked around his room, the same room that had seen years of simple routine. Tomorrow, it would witness a new chapter. He lay down and closed his eyes. This time sleep came slowly, but with it came the understanding that some decisions are not about comfort, but about courage. The morning was quiet, but tense. The man woke early again. The decision he had made the night before weighed heavily. He knew that the day would bring challenges that no one could predict. He dressed, slowly thinking about what needed to be said and done. He checked his phone and saw a message from her asking if he was ready. He replied that he was on his way and took a deep breath before leaving. The streets were calm, but he felt as if every person passing by carried judgment in their eyes. When he reached the meeting place, she was waiting. She looked exhausted but relieved. He noticed the way her shoulders relaxed slightly when she saw him. She smiled faintly, without showing excitement. But it was enough to ease some of his tension. They walked together quietly, talking about simple things, yet the urgency was always present. She explained the arrangements she had made to handle family expectations and other matters. He listened closely, trying to absorb every detail. He realized the situation was delicate and that any wrong step could make things worse. She told him that her family believed time was running out and they had chosen someone she could not refuse. She said she felt trapped but wanted to take one last chance to control the situation herself. This confession made him understand the depth of pressure she was under and why the urgency of marriage was real. He nodded silently and suggested they make a plan to face the day one step at a time. He proposed simple strategies to explain their presence and keep misunderstandings to a minimum. They spoke calmly about boundaries, roles, and responsibilities. This discussion became the foundation of their unusual deal. Shy looked at him with gratitude. She admitted that she had been afraid of being alone in this, but seeing him willing to step in gave her a strange comfort. He realized that this was not about love. It was about trust, survival, and mutual respect. They agreed to stay together until the situation was resolved. She explained clearly that this was temporary. She wanted the world to see her as married and hoped this would satisfy the demands around her. They laughed quietly at the absurdity, but the laughter carried relief rather than amusement. He felt the tension in his chest ease slightly, but he also knew that walking into this arrangement could create complications. He thought about friends, colleagues, and neighbors. He understood that some people might question their intentions and actions, yet he remained determined. They prepared for the day carefully, going over what to say and how to handle questions. They rehearsed polite responses and ways to avoid unnecessary conflict. Every detail mattered because the deal was fragile and relied on their cooperation and honesty. The way to meet the people who were expecting her, they walked slowly yet confidently. She held his arm lightly for support, and he felt the responsibility deepen. He reminded himself to stay calm and present. He knew that his actions today could change both of their lives. When they arrived, she greeted her relatives with careful words and gestures, introduced him as someone helping her through an urgent matter. He followed her lead, speaking when necessary and maintaining a composed presence. Their teamwork surprised him in its effectiveness. It felt natural, despite the pressure. Conversations were brief, questions were answered, and doubts were managed. They moved through the day with precision. Each step reinforced the unusual deal. They respected each other's space and kept communication clear. Their understanding became more than words. It became a silent agreement, guiding every action throughout the day. He noticed small glimpses of her personality that reminded him of the person he had known before. The stress, her sense of humor, shy smiles, thoughtful gestures all appeared briefly like flickers of light. In a tense world, he realized that trust can build quickly when lives intersect in unexpected ways. They shared moments of quiet conversation away from the crowd. She told him about fears, about what might happen after the day ended. He listened patiently, offering advice and support. Without imposing his feelings, she appreciated that. Said nothing more than thank you with sincerity. By afternoon, the arrangements were proceeding according to plan. Every interaction was calculated, yet carried a human touch. They avoided unnecessary confrontation and maintained dignity. They both felt the weight of responsibility, but also a sense of accomplishment. At one point she paused and looked at him. She said that she had never imagined someone would agree to stand beside her in such a situation. He shrugged, saying he could not abandon her when she needed help. He felt proud, but cautious, knowing the day was not yet over. As evening approached, they began to consider the final steps. The deal that had started in uncertainty now required completion. They prepared themselves mentally for the closing conversations and necessary formalities. She held his hand briefly and squeezed it as if to say, "We can do this together." Day had been long and exhausting, yet it revealed something unexpected. Both realized that facing life together, even in a temporary agreement, created a bond that was deeper than simple acquaintance. They did not speak of love yet. There was respect, admiration, and shared understanding. They left the gathering with a sense of relief. Their plan had worked, and immediate pressures were alleviated. The man felt tired, but satisfied. He knew that the deal no one expected had been carried out with dignity and care. He also knew that the real challenge would begin tomorrow, when they would have to face consequences and emotions that could not be planned. The next morning arrived with a strange calm. The man woke up feeling the weight of yesterday, but also a strange sense of resolve. He knew that today would test their arrangement in ways they could not yet imagine. He dressed slowly and prepared himself for the tasks ahead. She called him early. They spoke quietly about the plan. They reminded each other about boundaries, roles, and how to present themselves to others. The conversation was simple, yet carried the gravity of the situation. They both understood that one mistake could unravel everything. When he arrived to meet her, she was waiting with a quiet strength in her posture. She looked calm, but he could see the lingering worry in her eyes. He approached her, and together they left for the place where the final arrangements were to be made. The day began with small interactions with relatives and acquaintances. They greeted people, politely explained the situation briefly, and kept questions to a minimum. They followed their plan with precision. Every word and gesture mattered. They maintained composure even when probed about details they could not reveal. He noticed the way she handled each conversation. Her confidence returned slowly but surely. She explained matters calmly without panic and kept the focus on the necessity of timing. She showed him that she was more capable than he had realized and that he could trust her judgment. They walked together from one gathering to another. Their cooperation became almost instinctive. They would glance at each other briefly to check understanding or offer silent reassurance. They did not speak of feelings, yet they communicated through presence and small gestures. During lunch, they found a quiet corner and sat together. She told him about her fears after the immediate situation was resolved. She feared judgment and gossip. He listened and offered words of encouragement. He reminded her that they were facing this moment together, and that courage came in facing challenges, not avoiding them. They returned to the social obligations with renewed focus. Each interaction was handled with care and thoughtfulness. They answered questions politely, redirected conversations when necessary, and kept a calm demeanor. Despite the intense pressure, they managed to maintain dignity. At one point, a relative expressed doubts about the timing and questioned her decisions. She calmly explained the urgency and emphasized the necessity of the arrangement. They both realized that public perception mattered, and that their coordinated approach was essential to avoid unnecessary complications. He felt admiration for her ability to stay composed. Her calmness made him feel steadier. He realized that the deal they had made was not just about survival. It was about mutual support, respect, and learning to trust in difficult circumstances. They moved through the day with methodical care. Each step required attention to detail and constant awareness of potential problems. They practiced patience when faced with unnecessary questions or suspicion. They encouraged each other silently and maintained a united front as the day progressed. She confided small personal thoughts. He listened without judgment, He realized that the trust between them was deepening not because of love, but because of shared experience and understanding. She expressed relief at having someone to rely on, and he felt responsibility and pride in standing by her. They faced moments of discomfort as some people tried to intervene or question decisions. He stayed close and provided support while she responded with measured words. Their teamwork prevented conflicts from escalating and kept the plan on track. By evening, the arrangements were nearly complete. They had managed to navigate the social expectations and pressures successfully. Their coordinated effort had prevented any major disruption. They both felt exhausted, yet satisfied, knowing that the immediate crisis was handled with dignity. They walked home slowly. Reflecting on the day, they realized that the experience had changed their perspective. They had seen each other in ways that went beyond superficial acquaintance they had shared. Moments of stress, resilience, and quiet understanding. At home, they sat together quietly. She thanked him for standing by her. He nodded and reminded her that facing challenges together was a test of character. They did not speak of romance, but there was mutual respect and admiration that had grown naturally from the ordeal. The man realized that the deal they had made had been executed successfully. The immediate pressures were relieved, and they had handled the situation with care and thoughtfulness. Yet he also knew that the coming days would require adjustment, and that emotions could emerge that neither had anticipated. They agreed to rest and prepare for what was next. They understood that their arrangement was temporary, yet meaningful. Each had learned more about courage, trust, and human connection. They lay down with the awareness that life could present challenges at any moment, and that facing them together, even in unusual circumstances, could forge bonds that were strong and lasting. Morning arrived quiet and soft. The man woke feeling the weight of the past day's decisions and the anticipation of what would come. He knew that today they would face the full reality of their unusual arrangement. He dressed carefully and prepared himself mentally for the day ahead. She called him early to confirm the plan. They spoke calmly about how to proceed and what to expect. They reminded each other of boundaries, respect, and the need to maintain composure. The conversation was simple, yet carried the gravity of the final stage of their agreement. When he reached her, she was waiting with calm determination. Her posture was straight, but her eyes revealed the lingering tension from the past days. They walked together through streets that seemed both familiar and strange, as if life itself had shifted around them. Arrived at the gathering, where they would meet relatives, friends, and neighbors. The environment was charged with expectation, yet they approached it with quiet confidence. She introduced him to everyone as someone supporting her through an urgent matter. He followed her lead, speaking when necessary and remaining composed. Their coordination was seamless and drew subtle admiration from those around them throughout the interactions. They faced questions and curiosity. They responded with clarity and honesty, without revealing more than necessary. Each word and gesture was deliberate, yet natural. They maintained respect for themselves and others. Their partnership had grown through the past days into a silent understanding that guided their actions. At one point, someone questioned the timing and necessity of their presence. She calmly explained the urgency and emphasized the importance of her decisions. He supported her when needed, offering quiet reinforcement. His presence added stability to her responses and reinforced the perception that their arrangement was genuine and necessary. As the day progressed, small moments revealed deeper human connections. They laughed softly at minor misunderstandings, reassured each other in private, and shared observations that helped navigate tricky situations. Their bond grew from cooperation and trust rather than romance or passion. She confided fears about the future and how society would perceive her choices. He listened carefully, offering support and perspective. They discussed potential outcomes and prepared themselves for reactions that could follow the immediate events. Their conversations were practical, thoughtful, and human. During breaks, they reflected on the unusual nature of their agreement. They acknowledged that it was temporary yet meaningful. Each understood that courage was required to face pressures together. They saw in each other's strengths that had not been apparent before, and admired the resilience that had carried them through interactions with extended family and friends. Continued. They managed to maintain dignity while addressing inquiries and managing assumptions. They remained composed even when confronted with skepticism. Their teamwork ensured that the situation remained controlled and respectful. By evening, The arrangements were mostly complete. They had successfully navigated social expectations and pressures there. Careful planning and mutual respect had ensured that the immediate crisis was resolved. They felt relief mixed with exhaustion, knowing that the most challenging part of the ordeal had passed. They walked home together, reflecting on the experiences of the past days. They realized that even temporary arrangements could create profound connections through shared struggle and mutual support. They did not speak of love, but recognized the strength and value of trust, empathy, and human cooperation. Home they sat quietly. He thanked her for allowing him to stand beside her. She expressed gratitude for his support and presence. They acknowledged that the situation had been difficult yet rewarding in terms of understanding, courage, and resilience. They both recognized that life could present unexpected challenges at any moment. They discussed what the coming days might bring, how to navigate emotions and relationships with clarity and honesty. They agreed to continue supporting each other. While respecting boundaries, their conversation was calm yet meaningful, reflecting the maturity and understanding developed over the past days. As night fell, they prepared for rest, feeling a sense of accomplishment and quiet pride they had faced a crisis together, handled social pressures with dignity, and maintained respect for themselves and others. They understood that life would continue to bring challenges, but that the bonds forged through trust and cooperation would remain valuable. Man reflected on the unusual journey they had begun with uncertainty, fear, and hesitation, but had navigated each step with thoughtfulness and courage. He recognized that human connection was not always about love, but about presence, trust, and mutual respect. She lay down beside him briefly to rest. Their eyes met with silent acknowledgement of what they had faced and accomplished. Neither needed to speak further. They had shared a journey that had tested their character, strengthened their trust, and expanded their understanding of courage and empathy. The quiet night, both felt a sense of closure and readiness for the future. They knew that life would continue to challenge them in unexpected ways, but they also knew that facing difficulties together, even temporarily, had created bonds that would influence their choices and perceptions forever. Day had ended, the crisis had been managed, and both had grown through the experience. They had learned that decisions made in urgency could still carry dignity and humanity. They had discovered strength, resilience, and trust in themselves and in each other. They lay quietly, aware that the story of their lives had shifted in subtle, profound ways that would remain with them as they moved forward. The morning after the previous events felt quiet but different for the man. He woke slowly, reflecting on how much had changed. In a short time, he realized that what had started as a sudden request had now become a complex reality. He dressed carefully and prepared himself for the challenges that might come today. She called him early as usual. They spoke calmly about the day ahead. They reminded each other about the agreements, boundaries, and how to handle unexpected situations. They both understood that even small mistakes could create larger problems, and that communication would be essential throughout the day. When he arrived, she was waiting with a composed expression, but he could see the subtle tension in her movements. They walked together through the streets, noticing small details they had not seen before. The air seemed lighter, yet filled with anticipation of what they would face. Their first interactions were with neighbors and acquaintances who were curious about the previous day's arrangements. She introduced him as someone who had supported her during urgent family matters. He spoke politely when needed and remained attentive there. Coordination had grown seamless through the experiences of the past days. During conversations, people asked questions about her choices and the timing. He noticed that she responded with calm confidence, using clear explanations that minimized confusion. She displayed strength he had not seen before, and he realized that the trust between them was growing rapidly through mutual respect and understanding. They walked to various locations, addressing formalities and practical matters. Each interaction required awareness and thoughtfulness. They learned to read each other silently, to know when to step in or remain in the background. They avoided conflicts and kept communication open and supportive. One point, someone challenged the necessity of the arrangement. She calmly explained the urgency and the reasoning behind her decisions. He supported her with gentle reinforcement. Their combined presence reassured others and maintained the integrity of the agreement. They realized that the situation required balance, patience, and thoughtful action. During a brief pause, she confided fears about the future, uncertainty about how people would perceive them, and worries about potential consequences. He listened carefully, offering support, advice, and encouragement. Their discussions were grounded in reality and strengthened the sense of partnership between them. They moved through the day handling small challenges and unexpected questions. They managed each situation with tact and care. Their mutual understanding allowed them to face pressures without unnecessary stress, and to maintain dignity and respect for themselves and others. Moments of quiet conversation revealed deeper insights into each other's character. She shared experiences that shaped her responses and perspectives. He realized that her strength was not just in her calm, but in the way she thought through challenges. He respected her resilience and thoughtfulness. They faced moments of tension when relatives questioned details. He remained close and attentive. She handled responses carefully yet confidently. Their teamwork prevented misunderstandings and reinforced the credibility of their arrangement. They noticed that shared struggle was creating a subtle bond beyond words. By evening, most of the obligations and expectations had been managed successfully. They had navigated social pressures and handled inquiries with dignity and effectiveness. They felt exhausted yet accomplished, knowing that the immediate challenges were resolved and the arrangement had been respected by those around them. They walked home together, reflecting on the past few days. They recognized that even temporary decisions could create meaningful connections through shared experiences and mutual support. They did not discuss romance, but understood the value of trust, empathy, and cooperation in human relationships at home. They sat quietly, exchanging thoughts about the day. They acknowledged the complexity of their situation and the courage it had taken to face it together. They shared feelings of relief and quiet satisfaction in having supported each other through difficulty. Without compromising integrity, they discussed plans for the near future, including how to handle reactions from family and society. They agreed to maintain honesty and clear communication to navigate ongoing challenges. Their conversation was calm, thoughtful, and focused on practical ways to maintain stability and mutual respect. As night fell, they prepared to rest. Each reflected on the journey they had shared. The man realized that decisions made in urgency could still be carried out with dignity and care, and that trust and understanding could grow quickly in shared struggle. She understood that courage was not about absence of fear, but the willingness to face challenges together. They lay down with a sense of accomplishment and a readiness for whatever the next day might bring. They had learned important lessons about resilience, trust, and human connection. They understood that life would continue to test them in unexpected ways, but that the experiences they shared had strengthened their ability to face challenges with courage and clarity. The morning arrived with a quiet stillness. The man woke feeling the weight of the previous days and the anticipation of what was to come. He dressed slowly and thoughtfully, knowing that today would bring new challenges and unexpected situations. He felt a mix of anxiety and determination. She called him early, as she always did. They spoke calmly about the day ahead. They reminded each other about boundaries and respect, and discussed ways to handle unexpected questions or challenges. They both understood that clear communication would be essential throughout the day. When he arrived, she was waiting. She looked calm, but her eyes revealed lingering tension from the events of the past days. They walked together through streets that seemed ordinary, yet carried the weight of anticipation. Their steps were measured, and they spoke quietly about practical matters. Their first encounters were with neighbors and acquaintances who were curious about recent developments. She introduced him as someone assisting her with urgent family matters. He spoke politely when needed and maintained a calm presence. Their coordination had improved greatly through shared experience and understanding. Conversations, people asked questions about timing and choices. She responded with clear and composed explanations. He supported her quietly when necessary. Their combined presence reassured others and reinforced the credibility of their arrangement. They realized that mutual respect and cooperation had become the foundation of their unusual bond. They moved through the day handling various practical tasks and social obligations. Each interaction required attention and tact. They learned to anticipate each other's responses and to act in harmony. They avoided unnecessary conflicts and maintained dignity in every situation. During a brief pause, she confided her lingering fears. About future judgments and the perceptions of others, he listened attentively, offering advice, encouragement, and understanding there. Conversations were grounded in reality and strengthened the sense of partnership. Between them, they faced challenges as relatives asked probing questions or made subtle suggestions. He remained supportive and attentive. She handled each situation calmly and confidently. Their teamwork prevented misunderstandings and maintained the integrity of their agreement. They noticed that shared struggle was creating a deeper connection by mid-afternoon. They had navigated most social pressures and obligations successfully. They moved from one meeting to another, addressing practical matters and maintaining composure. Each action was deliberate yet natural. They had developed an almost instinctive understanding of how to support each other. They shared quiet moments in between interactions, reflecting on the experiences they had endured together. She expressed relief at having someone to rely on, and he realized that their bond was built on trust rather than romance. They discussed strategies for handling potential challenges in the coming days throughout the day. They observed how small gestures and coordinated actions could influence the perception of others. They maintained respect for themselves and those around them. Their approach was thoughtful and deliberate, minimizing conflict and reinforcing credibility. At one point, someone expressed doubt about the necessity of their arrangement. She calmly explained the urgency and reasoning behind her decisions. He supported her, subtly offering reassurance. Their combined presence reinforced the seriousness and sincerity of their situation. As evening approached, they concluded the main obligations and responsibilities of the day. They felt exhausted yet satisfied, knowing that the immediate challenges had been handled with care and dignity. They walked home together, reflecting on the lessons learned through shared experience. At home, they sat quietly discussing the day. They acknowledged the growth and understanding that had developed between them. They recognized that temporary arrangements could create meaningful bonds through trust, empathy, and cooperation. They did not speak of love, but valued the human connection that had emerged. They prepared for rest, knowing that future days would require continued awareness and careful handling of relationships. They understood that the experiences of the past days had strengthened their ability to navigate life with courage, patience, and mutual respect. They lay down feeling accomplished and quietly hopeful for what lay ahead. Man reflected on how quickly life could shift from ordinary to extraordinary. He realized that facing challenges together could create bonds that were strong and enduring, even in unconventional circumstances. She understood that resilience was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to confront difficulties together. They both felt a deepened sense of awareness and connection that would guide their actions in the days to come. As night settled, they rested side by side. A quiet understanding passed between them. They knew that life would continue to present unexpected challenges, yet the trust and cooperation they had built would serve as a steady foundation. They lay quietly, aware that their experiences had changed them and prepared them for